Hello everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode on my channel, Wonder Boho Book Club. Today I'll be discussing the book, On the Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are, written by Alan Watts. Alan Wilson Watts was an English writer, speaker, and self-styled philosophical entertainer, known for interpreting and popularizing Japanese, Chinese, and Indian traditions of Buddhist, Taoist, and Hindu philosophy for a Western audience. In the book, Alan Watts tackles some of our deepest philosophical and existential questions, helping us find new perspectives on who we are and what life is about. At the root of human conflict is our fundamental misunderstanding of who we are. The idea that we are isolated beings has led us to be hostile to the outside world and resulted in our misuse of technology. This has led us to be violent or hostile towards the natural world as well. To help us understand how the self is the ground and root of the universe, Watts has crafted an insightful guide on what it means to be human and a thrilling initiation into the deepest secrets of existence. Before moving ahead, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Part 1. The Biggest Taboo. Every new generation has its own set of taboos, and we usually let go of these as we move from one era to the next. For example, in many societies, sex was a big taboo for centuries. Fast forward to today, and you will find that's hardly the case anymore. You can see it used as a marketing tool on billboards or hear references to it in popular music. But a few important things remain forbidden, like the discussion about what it means to be human. We often use incorrect understandings of who we are as human beings. We claim to be individuals living life without much connection to or awareness of the needs and experience of others. We imagine ourselves as existing in a completely different world, detached from our own planet. But this isn't reality. It's an illusion disguised as self-deception. The truth is, we are born from the world, not into it. Our planet is constantly generating people like it generates waves. And while each person is unique, they're also not separate from the world in which they were born. Part 2. Our True Identity. When you think about the major psychologists and thinkers who have tried to figure out what it means to be human, you realize that they have missed one very simple truth about human identity. Today's culture often depicts the individual as an island unto himself, with nobody else in the world. But we know that this isn't how things work. We are not just one drop of water in the ocean. Rather, we're part of the energy that creates everything, including humans, nuclear fields, and outer space itself. That's why our identity is really old and infinite. It's the energy vibrations that have taken on many forms throughout history. It's not an easy concept to understand at a rational or intellectual level, and that's why it doesn't get acknowledged as often. Part 3. Experiencing God. Some people think of God as an all-powerful, immortal being with control over everything, while others, throughout history, have had other ideas of what God is. Hinduism is a long-standing Indian philosophy that teaches that divinity is everywhere and in everything. Rather than existing in some separate realm, God is seen as an essential part of the whole universe, not just humans. The Vedanta texts are called the Upanishads, and they contain dialogues, poetry, and stories that provide a glimpse into how this ancient civilization viewed the divine. As Hindus believed God was within all living beings, they were not prideful of their beliefs, and they didn't feel like their beliefs set them apart the way other religions might. By realizing that God might be present in everything else, people were more respectful of fellow humans and their environment. According to Vedanta, spiritual enlightenment happens when you experience the all-pervasive presence of God. Experiencing the presence of God is something that would surely alter one's life and change the way they see things. It cannot be forced or imposed upon people, but it can be experienced during meditation by some. Part 4. Cause and Effect. We often think of things in binary categories. Things are either light or dark, either sound or silence. We seem to be very familiar with the concept of cause and effect. This term has been thrown around a lot lately, but what does it actually mean? It's basically the idea that we're all doomed and everything is the result of some other event. But if that were true, it would mean we have no free will and everything happens for some prior reason. It seems like we're always reacting to and never acting upon decisions made by different factors. When you think about cause and effect, it's easy to believe that events happen as a result of one another. For example, if an event happens to be the head, then somebody would likely assume that an event such as a tail is soon to follow. But this is not true, since the head and tail are part of the same body. We are so often delving into the small details of things that we fail to see how they're related to everything else. When you see things collectively and recognize the world as one interconnected system, it's easier to understand why things happen the way they do. To listen to more interesting summaries, please subscribe to my channel. Part 5. Viewing life as either-or scenarios. Looking at something is an active process. Even if there is nothing new to discover, each time you look at it, there will be something different that you notice. Paying attention to something is a process of concentrating on it. Once we have picked something, we need to document what we find in a way that's easy for others to understand. We do this through symbolic representations like writing or drawing. If you study the words available in languages and explore the depths of a person's vocabulary, then you can figure out how perceptive they are and what they pay attention to. The best example of this is the various Inuit languages that contain a large vocabulary of words relating to snow. Of course, when you live in the Arctic, with its huge swathes of snow, you are going to pick up a few more words for it. The Japanese have a word that's hard to find an English translation of, yugen. It means to wander through the woods in a tranquil, meditative way, a feeling we rarely pay attention to. It's clear that our selective attention creates the illusion of life being made up of opposites and either-or scenarios. One example is how common logic says it's only light or daylight during the day and only dark at night. However, that isn't true. There is enough light no matter what hour of the day it is. It all depends on your viewpoint or perception. During the day, there are more light waves, so it can be hard to consciously notice how dark it is between them. But at night, even though there is still a lot of light, the darkness appears just as much. Thus, instead of thinking day and night as opposites, we should think of them as two halves of the same whole. Part 6. Overcoming the fear of death. Death is a huge topic that most people don't like to think about, especially in the Western society. If it were up to them, people would live forever. The reason death frightens us is the way it's explained through religions in Western cultures. Christianity has led to the popular idea that death is followed by a final judgment. Those who don't live without sin will go to hell. Although heaven is a popular concept, the truth is that it might not be all it's cracked up to be. It sounds like you'll forever be watched over by God, and you might just have to play harps and sing hymns for your entire existence. Most people feel that the atheist afterlife is a better option, but the idea of oblivion after death might not be so comforting either. Alternatives to Western cultures have different views on death. In some of them, death is seen as a threshold from which we can start a new phase of spiritual growth. In these belief systems, if you're sick, you might be encouraged to see death as an opportunity to let go of your ego and your identities so that you can think more cogently. Part 7. God is eternal. What's in store for us in the future? New discoveries make this question a hotly debated one. Nonetheless, we unanimously agree on one thing: technology, which will make us more connected. Much of the information that was available to the public back in the author's day was possible because of TV and radio. The author predicted that this online engagement would extend the reach of humans and allow them to connect anonymously with other people through virtual space. They could get the things they need without leaving home and have a conversation all within one program. Going down that line of thought, he predicted that the human race might end up with a centralized nervous system, much like the internet we have today. He also argues that as internet connections and virtual experiences continue to improve, humans will eventually live in a highly homogeneous society. Our privacy might get diminished to the point where we don't know what's ours to keep private anymore, because thoughts may become public property. But even if technology continues to advance, you can always trust that God is still there. Remember that the universe is a game that God created. So if humans make everything too uniform, predictable, and controlled, then change is bound to happen. No one wants to play a boring game, not even God. So be careful when you try to control things too much, because you never know what might come of it in the end. Conclusion. Most people have egos, so they imagine that they are unique, special individuals and different from the rest of the world. This way of thinking is inaccurate, and it can't do much for your spiritual needs. So realize that you're a part of this huge universe and all that it creates. Once you start to feel in connection with the world, you will come closer to accepting your true identity and purpose. You will start to appreciate the gift of life, which is the opportunity to express and experience your authentic self. You will get in touch with who you really are, what you came here for, begin fulfilling your true desires, and find a way to make it work in this lifetime. When we live from our heart center, we understand that every day is an opportunity for change and transformation, and that there will always be another day ahead, regardless of how much or how little time we have. Thank you for watching this episode. Please don't forget to subscribe. Your likes, comments, and shares are highly appreciated. See you soon in our next episode.